Hey, I wanted to go over how to make sauerkraut today. I'm actually using a crock for sauerkraut, or a fermenting crock. You can do more things in it than that. And as you'll notice, this little hole here lets a little bit of air in, and the crock has a lip which you put water in. It helps sustain the oxygen versus not oxygen in the crock. The thing about this bacteria that you're trying to grow is that it does not like oxygen, right? You need just a little bit of it to keep the ratio right. So some people will use a glass container and use a plate for their weight, and they'll put a small dish towel on top, and that's fine too. So there are many different ways. You can make them in little mason jars too, which is really convenient. The only thing hard about that is that you have to figure out a way to weight the cabbage down so that the cabbage is consistently covered in moisture, right? The cabbage will float to the top. It wants to do that. You need to have something that will keep it down so that the fluid that is extracted from the cabbage stays above the cabbage itself. So this is hard to do on video without piecing videos together. I don't know how to edit videos, so I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible and already have some things prepared. So in general, when you have your cabbage, make sure to pull all of the dark green leaves off. They do not taste well and they do not do well in this process, right? So you want to come down to like this, right? Some people just go to the more lighter inner area, but I keep a little of the light green on the outside. And you're going to want to slice your cabbage or shred it. You can shred it on a shredder. I slice mine, and then it already is in splits, and then I just cut it crosswise, okay? Ends up like this. See? A little heavier than coleslaw. Okay? Make sure you clean it really well. If you're growing your own, bugs have a tendency to crawl up into these cracks and crevices. So either cut your tail off and scrub real hard, or pull a lot of the leaves back and make sure all the dirt and the insects are out of your cabbage before you get started. Okay, so the general rule is you want to weigh your cabbage to find out how much salt you want to use. Now the reason this is important is because too much salt will not allow the fermentation to happen. Too little salt will not work at all, right? So I'm that person. When I cook, I don't use a recipe. I do it all by texture, by taste, by feel. I can do sauerkraut that way too, but it always usually ends up close to the same amount of salt. Don't try it, right? You'll mess it up and be upset because it takes 3 to 6 weeks to have this sit and do what you need it to do. So the rule is 2 teaspoons per pound of shredded leaf. So make sure you weigh it, right? This is 3.5 pounds. So I did 6.4 of salt that I put into it. And what you want to do is make sure that the entire cabbage has covered in the salt, right? So I put layers of salt in between each portion, and I've been rolling it. Now what you'll notice is all of a sudden this watery stuff starts to come out. The salt extracts the juice from the cabbage. The juice from the cabbage is what's going to do the fermentation for you, right? So a good idea is to do the salt, let it sit 10 minutes, then massage it, massage it, massage it. You really want to start seeing this fluid coming out before you start packing it into your crock or your container. Some people will let it sit for hours. So what you do is you get it really covered, moisture coming out of it, and then you're going to pack it tightly into your crock. Now when I pack it down, I mess with it for the next 45 minutes. I come in, mash it around. I'm really trying to make sure the fluid is coming up above the cabbage itself, right? Now, weighting it down. The reason I use the crock, it's just easier for me because it comes in, its own thing. Its oxygen level, its ratio is, easy to deal with. And then it comes with these weights. So once you get the cabbage packed into the crock, you're going to set these weights on the top of the cabbage, right? It's going to keep the cabbage down so that the fluid can be above it. Now, in 3 days, it will start to bubble. That bubble is good. That's what you want. It's starting to ferment, okay? 5 to 6 days, you're going to start seeing little globs of moldy looking stuff on top of the water. Now, a lot of people will open it up every day and scrape off that little globby stuff. So you don't have to do that, but you want to make sure if there's too much globby stuff that you are peeling it off. Every time I've done sauerkraut here, I keep it in a cooler temp. You're supposed to do between 68 to 72. Where I keep my crock is probably 60. So I don't have that much of that film. I must have, let's see, last year I probably cleaned it once a week for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, I left it alone. So you can remove that or you don't have to. I know people who don't touch it. They put the lid on. They don't even look at it for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 weeks. Last year, I pulled mine at 4 weeks. It was perfect at 4 weeks. And until you do it enough times, you really won't know what you prefer. You'll have to just play with it and taste and texture. And I look at the floating water. That's what helps me determine when to pull the cabbage. So when you pull your cabbage, the sauerkraut, there's one hard thing about it, right? A lot of people love to do this for the health reasons for it. It's really great, the fermentation, probiotic aspect. But if you're going to can it long term so that you can use it throughout the year, when you can, it's going to kill those properties off. Now, I know there's a footprint probably there still, some availability, but it's certainly not active because the heat in either a can cooker or a pressure cooker will kill the bacteria. So just to let you know that, you can make this and put it in a mason jar and put it in your refrigerator and eat it. It will last quite a long time. But if you're talking about wanting to have sauerkraut all year and wanting to make 10 cans of it, might not last you unless you eat it really quickly. So good thing to think about before canning in a pressure cooker versus just putting it in a refrigerator. Okay? 3 to 6 weeks is the time. Now, depending on the temperatures you put it in, where you live, what kind of pot, everything's a little different. You can go on YouTube and look for whatever thing you're doing to help you decide what's best for you. Colorado's dry. Colorado's kind of a medium temperature. And if you're storing in a dry, kind of cooler, dark area, I feel like I've had better luck with that. I mean, the majority of people say between 68 and 72 degrees is where you want it to be. Do not let it get into hot temperatures. Don't leave it on your kitchen table and think, oh, I'm going to look at it every day. This is where I need to have it so I don't forget. And your house is not cool enough or warm enough, right? Don't be living in air conditioning and have it in the house with you in air conditioning. A garage is an option. Check your temperatures, but a garage is a good option for some people because it's not too hot, not too cold. So keep your temperature how it should be. Okay, so this is 20 minutes in, okay? You probably, I don't know if you can see the moisture. It's pulling it out. It's still not where it should be, but I'm going to go ahead and transfer it into the crock. This is so hard to get everything in the picture here. So you're going to load it into the crock. Okay. Now remember, your 3 pounds of cabbage or 5 pounds of cabbage or whatever you're doing shrinks, right? So this pot can take another 3 pounds that I'm going to do here in a minute after I get off the video. It's only half full now, where before, if I had put the cabbage in here, it would have filled the crock to the top. Once the moisture starts to drain from the cabbage will shrink, right? So you want to keep that in mind. Now, see this liquid here in the bottom of the bowl? I'm going to pour it in. That's what you want to cover your cabbage. Now, a lot of people will mix their cabbage in the crock so they don't lose any moisture at all, right? And they're packing it down. You want to really pack this down, right? Now I'm going to add stuff on top of it, but I'm going to show you now, after it's filled, what I'm going to do. Now make sure it's only 3/4 full. Very important. Leave a gap, just like canning, because you have to have expansion. It will start to expand. The fluid will come out. It will start to kind of expand and blow up. You need that space. But also, don't make it too low in there, okay? Then the fermentation struggles. It's all about space, temperature. It's just that. It's simple to do after you've done it 1 or 2 times, but just make sure it's 3/4 full. So if you're using a container and it's only going to be half full, change your container. Give yourself more of what you need to be doing to get this right, okay? These weights are great. So you're going to slip the weights in on top of the cabbage. and push down firmly. Okay? So once the juice comes up, see them in there? Once the juice comes up, the juice is going to be almost above these stones. Sometimes it's just right below, but almost above. You'll see the fluid there, and see already the fluid starting to even come out more. Okay? Then when you do that, if you're using a crock, you're going to put your first of all, you're going to put a little bit of water, a small amount of water in the rim. I would say 1/8 of a cup. Okay? And then you're going to set your lid down. You can check it when you want, right? Don't have the lid off long periods of time. You can check it, scrape your stuff off, put your lid back on. If you're using a container with your towel, same thing. Don't take the towel off, mess around, play with, blah, blah, you know what I mean? Do your business, get out. Leave it alone, let it do its thing. Make sure if you're not checking it that you at least check it at 3 weeks, okay? Because you don't know what's going on in there. You can have all kinds of things growing in there, which you don't want to do. Okay, so this is a crock. You can do it other ways. You can do it in a mason jar. You can do it in a basic pottery dish like this. There's a lot you can do. It's better if you can have more control over the covering of it. Just to let you know. You can get these online or you can buy them on Etsy. Etsy has the best selection. Different sizes, different colors, different things. The Etsy also has kits, mason jar kits, with the little pressurizer and the pressure thing in it for sauerkraut. You can find those there. So hopefully this helps you. It's not hard to do. It's not. I don't want to make it sound like it's hard to do. It's also really great if you love sauerkraut on dogs, or my husband loves it on pizza. That's why I make it. I make it for him. I don't eat much of it. I love cabbage. But sauerkraut, not my favorite thing. So if you have any questions, send me a message and I'll help you out. Again, just jump on it, do it. Like anything else, you have to do it to know how to do it, right? Just do it. Go buy cabbage at the grocery store if you don't grow it, and just try it. Really, it's simple, and you'll love the flavor. The difference of flavor is unbelievable. Sauerkraut, after you've canned it, or fresh sauerkraut, is heavenly. If you take the jar from the store and you taste it against the sauerkraut you make, you won't believe it. You'll wonder what they do to that cabbage that they put in the jar. It's astounding. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.